Hello Madcappers! Today I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to upgrade your plain scrunchie technique to one that looks so polished and professional with just a simple new closing seam. So the scrunchie has a real pretty look to it, a real summer feel, a layered look as well. It's based on how I make my flowers for my summer hats, so we're going to learn that too in some upcoming videos. To start, we need a piece of fabric that's 26 inches or 66 centimeters long and 5 inches or 13 centimeters wide, elastic 10 inches or 25 centimeters long by 6 millimeters or a 1/4 inch wide. And we're going to sew the two narrow ends together, right sides together, and then afterwards we're going to finger press that seam open. Now I'm using a 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter wide seam allowance, but if you're more comfortable with a 1/2 inch, then by all means use a bigger seam allowance. The scrunchie is pretty flexible, so we're going to flip it over, and we've laid the seam down on our sewing table, and what we're going to do is that top layer, we're going to roll it towards the center of the piece, and we're going to roll it tightly, and we can see our back seam underneath. Now bring your bottom layer edges together, hiding that rolled layer inside, and match the edges of the bottom layer together at the seam. And I'd like to put a pin there at this point as I move over to the sewing machine. And this method of sewing this tube shape together is called the burrito method, and we use it a lot on our summer headbands. So I'm started about 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters above that back seam and sewing over top of the back seam right at the start. And you're going to sew those seam edges together almost all the way around. And you are going to pull the seam edges out as you go from that rolled layer inside. And I find it easier to do the step if my needle is down in the fabric. That makes it easier to pull the fabric out. And you're going to continue to pull out that fabric and sew along that seam edge, exposing more of the seam edge as you go and sewing along, but be very careful not to sew over that center rolled part of the fabric that's inside your tube. And as you make your way back to the starting point, you're going to stop about 4 centimeters from your starting point and backstitch. And you want to leave an opening there that's large enough for you to get your thumb and a finger through, so you can pull your right side out. So I've left an opening large enough to get 2 fingers inside, a thumb and a finger, and I'm going to pull it right side out now. And we have the beginnings of a fabulous scrunchie. So once I have that piece turned right side out, I am going to move the seam now down into one side of my scrunchie. So I'll have 2 folded edges on either side, and my seam is going to come down on one side of my scrunchie. And you can place that seam however large you want, 1/3 of the way down, 1/4 of the way down, but just try to be consistent. And you're going to also work it so that the raw seam that's inside is all facing in the same direction. And once you have that all figured out and in place, you're just going to go over it with your iron. I still have an opening there, and that's where I'm going to insert my elastic, but I'm going to mark it with a clip so I know that I don't want to sew over that opening as I just start my top stitching to sew that raw seam underneath down flat, and to begin the process of closing up my scrunchie seam. And I'm just sewing close to the edge of the seam. I'm using my handy dandy magnetic seam guide to help do a very polished job, but just so close to the edge. And then you're going to leave an opening large enough for your bodkin or your pin, however method you're going to use to get elastic into your scrunchie. And you see now I have 2 compartments in my scrunchie. One is the narrow compartment that's closest to my machine needle, and the other is the wider compartment that I am feeding my elastic through. And I'm just going to keep feeding that elastic until I get all the way back around, and then I will pull the ends through that opening gap and adjust my gathers and adjust the length of my elastic so my gathers are perfect. Once I'm happy with the size of my opening and the amount of gathering, I'm just going to take the ends of my elastic and tie them together in a very tight knot. And then I will trim the ends. And this technique will work with any scrunchie pattern that you are using now. Just give this a try. Now I'll just work the knot back into the seam. And I'm going to move back over to the sewing machine now to close that little gap that I left for inserting my elastic, and then just make it look like the part of the original top stitching. And no one even knows where that elastic gap was. I'm going to just fluff it up and move those gathers around. And it's perfect. Yes, it is. So much nicer, I think, than just the plain original scrunchie. Now, what happens if we decide to put our elastic in the opposite compartment, in the narrow section? So let's see. The difference starts with the ironing technique. So this time we're only going to iron on the side of the scrunchie that has the narrow compartment. So we're going to leave that wider area that will be the top of our scrunchie unironed and puffy. And then we're going to feed the elastic in up behind that top stitching that we have done. And we'll feed the elastic all the way around and come back out the opening, tie off the ends the way we did with our last scrunchie, just adjusting the gathering. Give it a good eyeball. How big do you want it? You can decide here to make it tighter or looser. Tie it off in a knot. Trim the ends. Work that knot into the scrunchie. Go back to the sewing machine and just close up that opening by continuing that top stitch. And look at that. That's very pretty too. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. You have 2 new scrunchie finishing techniques to experiment with. So much fun. Out with the old, in with the new. Give us a like if you liked the video. Consider subscribing to our channel if you aren't already. We are just getting started. We have so many hats and so many different sewing projects to share with you over our 36-year career. Thanks so much for watching. Happy sewing, everyone. We'll see you soon. Bye.